Good morning, everybody. This is my reaction to yesterday's derby. I was down after the game, not because of the result. I expected it to be a lot worse than it was, but because of what it symbolises. Um, we have gone from being a club that was dominant in English football, who would always be the favourites in a derby, to being such rank outsiders that we have to play in a way that was similar probably to how a team like Burnley would approach the game against City. It's how we had to approach the game, but the fact that we had to do that it was quite a sobering experience to watch it, um, and it's the result of 10 years of neglect, mismanagement, incompetence, wasted money, and no direction. A culture that stinks, and you're putting that against a culture of excellence, driven towards winning at any cost, literally any cost, and cheating, which is what City have had. You're putting those two things against each other, it just doesn't work. And sometimes, of course, you get upsets, but that's what it would have been yesterday. Make no mistake about it. It would have been a huge upset if United had won. And as a United fan, I don't see us as being an inferior club to Man City in any way, shape, or form. But on the pitch, it's chasms in terms of the gap between the two teams. I thought we were for what it's worth. I thought we were incredibly disciplined. I thought we defended stoutly throughout the game. We were dogged. We were determined. We dug in. In the first half, I thought we were pretty handy on the counter attack. Onana, for me, deserves huge credit. I thought he was the Onana that I saw in the Champions League final that I was so excited about signing. He was confident. I talk a lot about body language, something I probably do in my career. It's to do with looking at people's body language. I saw a different character yesterday. I saw someone he didn't shrink in that environment. He grew in that environment. He wanted the ball. He was taking his time. His distribution was very good. He played a massive part in the goal. He came and commanded his box. He came and caught the ball several times when he couldn't catch it. He punched it. He made some decent saves. I thought he was really, really good. And we needed him to be good yesterday. The one thing I'd say about City, as much as they control games all day long, they give up chances quite easily. I've only watched them 3 times within the last year because I've no reason to watch them. I don't want to watch them. But I watched them in the FA Cup final against us. I watched them in the Champions League final against Inter Milan. I watched them yesterday. And on each occasion, they've completely controlled the game and dominated possession. But on each occasion, if the opposition can put more than 4 or 5 passes together, they can create something. In the FA Cup final with a skeleton team pretty much, and giving them a head start of a freak goal in the first 15 seconds, we were still able to come back into that game, and we still had chances at the end to equalise. McTominay hit the bar, I think it was McTominay. Inter Milan had next to no possession at times in the game, but created some significant chances that they missed. They fell to the wrong people. They fell to Lukaku, and there was one chance where he just got in the way of it, and I think it hit his arse and deflected out. Inter Milan should have got something out of that game. And yesterday in the first half, if we strung more than 4 or 5 passes together, we were getting in. But if it was for the quality wasn't good enough up front, and that's the point I'm coming round to, is that our quality in the final third wasn't good enough, because there were some moments in that game. Rashford scored an absolute worldie. It's pure instinct. It's come to him. He's just smashed it, but it's a great goal. And then after that, he reverted back to the, not so much in application. I thought his application was fine yesterday, but I thought he was really, really poor after that. And as a senior player, which he is, and a player with pace, and a player who can do something apparently in terms of being dangerous, you have to rely on a player like that in a game like yesterday. He's our only outlet, really. Garnacho looked knackered. And it fell to Rashford 2 or 3 times in positions where he could have done really, really well, and he didn't. There was the one where the ball's over the top and Walker was on his tail, and he all he needs to do is head it and then go onto it, and it's a shot, and it's potentially it's a goal, and he fluffed his lines. There was the one at the back post with his right foot in the first half where he fell over pretty much and messed it up. There's people up in arms about the build up to the first goal that Walker's fouled Rashford. Technically, he probably has, but I don't think Rashford backs himself in that situation. I think that's why he goes down. The commentators were saying, why has he gone down? They're not sure why he's gone down. He's gone down because he doesn't back himself. He hasn't got the courage to go through and have the shot, because I think he thinks he's going to miss. So I thought the goal would do his confidence good and that we'd see an improved performance, but I actually thought he was really poor after that. And that's more a comment on his performance rather than his attitude or his body language or anything like that. That was all fine yesterday. There was no problem with that. It's just not good enough. And in a game like that, you can have moments, and those moments you have to take advantage of them, and we didn't, because we didn't have the quality of the personnel up there. It comes back to the summer, to me, that if the club are looking at how, who you're going to keep, who you're going to let go of, who do you hang your hat on in a game like that? It's not Rashford. He scored a brilliant goal, but that wasn't even a chance. The chances we had, he didn't take advantage of. I said last week in a video, to me there's not much difference between Ten Hag and Solskjaer, and I think Ten Hag channeled his inner Ollie yesterday with the way he set the team up. That's the way we set up against City when we played against them, and successfully played against them quite a few times under Ollie, where it was literally sit tight, and you're going to get some chances on the counter attack, and you've got to make the most of them. And we beat them several times with Solskjaer doing that, because the quality on the counter attack was good enough. Martial did pretty well against him a few times. I think Rashford actually did pretty well against him a few times. Bruno's done well against him a few times. McTominay scored that wonder goal at Old Trafford just before COVID kicked in to make it 2-0. That was a fantastic performance where, again, we just sat in and then made the most of it on the counter attack. And that's what Ten Hag tried to do. But Solskjaer was sacked more than 2 years ago, and we are essentially we've not moved forward. That's where we're at. We play City, we have to sit in, and we have to look for stuff on the counter attack, because the club hasn't moved forward. That's not a comment particularly on Ten Hag. That's a comment on the club. We haven't got the players. We haven't got the squad. We haven't, despite spending loads of money, we're still no better than we were 2 or 3 years ago. And we still have to go to City and play like Burnley. I'm going to circle back around to Rashford in a little while, because whether he likes it or not, he's quite high profile at the moment. I think the club are absolutely insane if they're thinking of getting rid of Rafa Varane in the summer. I don't care if he's on big wages. When he's fit, he's outstanding. He's irreplaceable. Yesterday, he was an absolute colossus at the back. There was so many times where it's his foot that's getting on the end of a ball that's going into the box. It's his head that's on the end of a ball. It's his canniness when Haaland was going to do him, and he just stood his ground and blocked him. Like, you're not getting through that. The dark arts of the game. Again, I look at body language. He's a winner. I trust him. I feel secure when he's there. I thought Johnny Evans was superb yesterday, but Varane was brilliant and is brilliant, and maybe has some shortcomings because he's getting older and he has his injuries and stuff like that. But as an influence on that dressing room, surely to God, he is better than a lot of what's already there. And if it was up to me, I would keep him 100%. I would. I thought he was brilliant yesterday. Casemiro was very good yesterday and played a big part in what we did in keeping it at 1-0 and then 1-1. But for me, he's at fault for both the second and the third goal. For the second goal, he doesn't track Foden. It's a simple 1-2, and he doesn't track him. And you can't do that against City. The third goal, it's a stupid pass to Amrabat. He doesn't need to put it in the air. He doesn't need to make it difficult for Amrabat to control in a situation like that. Just pass it to his feet, or don't pass it to Amrabat. If that pass isn't on, don't do it. It was a stupid pass, and then everyone's on Amrabat's back because Casemiro is favoured by the fans because of his performances, and rightly so. And Amrabat's getting a tough time because he hasn't really made much of an impression. But it was a nightmare ball for him, and he didn't do very well with it. But it's a terrible pass from Casemiro, and an experienced player shouldn't be playing a pass like that. So his performance up to the point of City scoring their second goal was probably 7.5, 8 out of 10. But considering those two things, you probably have to put it down to a 5.5 or 6 because it hasn't cost us the game. We'd have lost anyway. They'd have ground us down anyway. But you can't make mistakes like that against them. Just circling back around to Rashford a little bit. Foden is an uncomfortable truth around Rashford, and an uncomfortable reminder and an uncomfortable comparison, because he is everything to City. Supposedly, what Rashford is to us. He's their local boy. Let's be honest about it. He's probably a bit of a scrote. He's no shrinking violet. He's not a stranger to controversy off the pitch. He's got his family in his ear, probably, just like Rashford has. But you look at the difference between the two players, and this isn't just about form, this is about quality and body language and attitude. He is a top-class football player. And I think it's quite significant for me that Foden at City doesn't have any... He's a darling of the fans because he's local, but he doesn't have any untouchable status at City. If he don't play well, he's not in the team. They've gone about Haaland and obviously De Bruyne because they've got so many good players. So Foden's just another player. He can just get on with it. I guess like Giggs was to us in the early to mid '90s, because we had Cantona and we had Keane and we had Hughes, who was still a hero and established at that time. We had players who could do things that were incredible, and Giggs was one of those players. But the status that Rashford's got is because we haven't got anything else, really. So he's got this status as being untouchable, and he does very little to earn it. And Foden's playing consistently well week in, week out. He's not on astronomical wages. He hasn't got an untouchable status, and he's hungry. And therein lies the difference. He's hungry. The club sets that up, and United have set it up the other way for Rashford. So again, just like I said about the whole situation is a little symbol, really, or a big symbol of how United have been run and how City have been run. Foden and Rashford is another symbol of that. At the end of the game, Gary Neville spoke about how well we defended and how disciplined we were, and the shape was good in terms of our defence, and that we solidified the midfield a lot more, and it was good to see that there wasn't great gaps like there was against Fulham. And I think Mick Richards said, well, that must make you optimistic for the next few weeks. The thing is, it's in some ways it's easier to do that against City, to be really, really solid in midfield. When Fulham come to Old Trafford, or Burnley come to Old Trafford, or some teams like that come to Old Trafford, if we sit in like that, then they're just going to sit in as well, and we can't break through a low block. We're crap at it. We have been for, again, nothing's changed. We have been for the last 7 or 8 years. We've been crap at trying to break through a low block. You can't just have players sitting in and hoping for a counter attack when a team doesn't come and attack you. Now, maybe Fulham's a bad example, because Fulham probably are quite an open team when they do come and attack you, and maybe that would have helped us last week against Fulham. But it's not like it's a surefire tactic that you can use in every game, because for Man United you can't do that, because teams will just come and sit against you, and you've got to try and break them down. So it'll just be a stalemate, like it used to be with Mourinho and like it was with Van Gaal at times. You're probably not getting beat too often, but you get some absolutely drab, terrible draws where you can't break teams down. And against City, that's fine to do what we did yesterday and be disciplined and have a good shape. That's great. You can't do that at home against relegation fodder. We can't go and do that against Everton next week, against Sean Dyche's Everton, because Sean Dyche will just come and try and be pragmatic and play for a point. It'll be an absolute snooze fest. Okay, yeah, have players disciplined that staying back in. What we've got to get better at is being more adaptable. We've got to get better at transitions. If we're playing against a team like Everton and we're going on the attack, what we've got to do is have at least one, maybe sometimes two players covering and hanging back, and letting the 3 or 4 that are up front go and do their stuff. Not everyone going forward, but that's about football intelligence. That's not necessarily about the shape of the team or the tactics that are being given. I don't think, anyway. I think that's about 1 or 2 players saying, you go, I'll stay. That's basic stuff, because too often everyone seems to go, and there's a big great gaping gap, and the defence isn't good enough to cope with it. We haven't got, and especially with the players we're missing, we haven't got the pace at the back to play a high line. We're going to get done. So we can't condense the pitch and play a high line like we'd like to. So when we tend to go forward, there then becomes this massive gap between the midfielders because they've gone forward, and the defence because they're hanging back because they're not quick enough. And then teams are just absolutely walking through us and having, when someone's running at you at pace, they're building up momentum, and that's difficult to then defend against, especially when you're not the quickest. So we're being overrun. We're too easy to play against in that respect. And if we play a high line, like against Forest, Forest just knocked it in behind us, and we were being turned left, right and centre. And we weren't even playing a particularly high line against Forest. Now, I'm not a tactical genius, I'm not professing to be, but I think that what we did yesterday is a lot easier and a lot more acceptable to do against City than it would be against those other teams. So, as I said, good defensive discipline. I thought there was nothing wrong with the performance yesterday in terms of who was available. What we're going to do. We're not going to go toe to toe with them. We're going to get absolutely annihilated. I thought everyone did their jobs to a degree, certainly defensively. And we didn't have enough quality up front. We didn't have enough ideas up front. But again, I will protect him. Bruno, for me, I thought he had quite a solid game yesterday. You've got to watch what he does off the ball as well. Whenever Dalot went forward, because Dalot at times was the one that became the extra man and tried to be quite aggressive going forward. Look how many times Bruno just slots in there. People talk about discipline. He's not disciplined. He doesn't hold his position. No, probably doesn't hold his position, but he's covering other people's positions quite regularly. And supposedly yesterday he was almost a nominal foot in a 4-4-2. He was almost a nominal one of the two that's supposed to be up top with McTominay. He was at right back. He was dropping in. He was trying to show for the ball. I'll always look at intention over outcome, and his intention's always good. His intention's always to try and help the team as much as he can, and it's not working out at the moment. And sometimes he loses the ball. But I thought yesterday he did okay. I thought the players that didn't give us what we needed were Garnacho, and I'm not blaming the lad, but he didn't have a particularly good game. He wasn't as dangerous as I know he can be, and Rashford. McTominay was really invisible. He didn't do a lot. Mainu was solid. Casemiro until the second goal was good, as I mentioned. Bruno did well, and the back four and goalkeeper was superb. But they broke us down, and they're going to do that as everyone was waxing lyrical about at the end of the game. So that's my post-match analysis of the derby. It was not as painful as I thought it would be, but the fact we scored gave us hope. And then when you get beat, sometimes it feels more painful because you thought actually we could have got something out of that. But realistically, I don't think it was ever going to happen. And we move on to Everton next week. Glazers out.